3 years as a kept woman, and I'd finally saved enough. The instant I started plotting my run for it, my sugar benefactor lost his memory. I laughed at the sky. Grandma Providence was on my side. Now I could bolt without worrying about after-sales service. Early the next morning I dragged my suitcase straight to Avalon. I was about to clear security when a hand clamped around my arm. I spun around. It was Sebastian. He stared at me, unblinking. "I finally found you. I don't remember you, but the moment I saw your photos, my face burned. I thought about it all night. I'm sure you're my baby. Now that I'm seeing you in person, my heart's racing even faster. This must be what people call butterflies." Looking into his sincere eyes, the corner of my mouth twitched. Great. The sugar benefactor woke up thinking I'm his one true love. What now? What else? I've banked the money. Did he seriously expect me to keep waiting on him? In his dreams. Exactly. Ivy, am that kind of girl. If I can't have it, I flip the table. Once I've got it, I forget the capital. I lifted my gaze to Sebastian. For no reason at all, the tips of his ears flushed red. When I didn't answer, he panicked. He yanked my suitcase away and pulled me into a corner of the terminal. The moment we stopped, he pressed both hands on my shoulders, forcing me to meet his eyes. I didn't speak, couldn't help blinking. His breathing turned ragged, the flush crawling from his ears to his throat. "Ivy, you're not leaving. You can't walk away from me. I stared at your photos all night, couldn't sleep a wink." My body gave a tiny jolt. Hold on. Photos? What photos? They couldn't be those photos, right? Impossible. The possibility snapped every nerve taut, my fingers twisted into my jacket hem. My brain raced, but no words came. Just then Sebastian's face darkened, his gaze locking on me. "So, Ivy, you really did lie to me yesterday?" Seeing his eyes narrow, I sucked in a breath. I was toast. Sebastian despises being lied to. Last night, I was sprawled on the sofa wearing the $400 gold foil mask Sebastian had bought when my phone rang. The moment I picked up, hesitant, "Ivy, who are you?" I froze. What new game was Sebastian playing tonight? I patted the cool sheet over my cheek and jumped right into character. "Me. I'm your little sweetheart." 2 seconds of silence. Then Sebastian's baffled, earnest voice. "Really?" My heart lurched. That tone was way too serious. After 3 years I thought I knew him. This reaction was off. I tested. "You don't remember who I am?" He confessed straight out. He'd had a car crash, his memory was hazy. He'd opened his contacts, seen my name, felt it looked familiar but couldn't place me, so he called to ask. I was secretly thrilled. Amnesiac Sebastian was actually obedient, answering whatever I asked. To be sure, I pressed. "What did you save me as?" "Ivy." "Perfect. Full name, no pet name. For insurance, didn't you ask your assistant?" A big thing like that, he should have been there. Sebastian hesitated, then said slowly, "I asked." He kept his head down and said, "Maybe you should call Sterling yourself." Me, understandable. If it were me, I couldn't have explained our less than proper arrangement either. That was when it hit me. Sebastian had amnesia, which meant my escape plan could start early. No messy consequences. Originally I'd figured I'd either wait until he got bored or kick up enough drama queen tantrums to drive him crazy. He always hated hysterical women, and then stage a broken heart exit. Now the whole process was skipped. Divine intervention. I couldn't help it, I laughed out loud. Sebastian, puzzled, "What's funny?" "Nothing." I killed the laughter and brushed him off. He paused, then pushed. "So, you really are my baby?" My brain spun into overdrive. I shot back loud and clear as if. Ever seen anyone label their baby with a full name? "Sebastian, good point. Then who are you?" I put on a solemn voice. "Truth is, we only know each other. That's it. Basically strangers." "Really?" Cross my heart. "Okay, gotta go, my husband's waiting." "You have a husband?" His voice tensed instantly. I hung up without answering. "Who's my husband?" "The idol I've been stanning lately, obviously." I never expected Sebastian to call back, deadly earnest and oddly awkward. Ivy, if you really have a family, I shouldn't bother you. But you shouldn't joke about being my baby either. Goodbye. He cut the line himself. I peeled off the mask, dashed to the bathroom to splash my face, then curled up on the sofa and laughed for a solid half hour. Nobody told me amnesiac Sebastian was this entertaining. When the giggles finally died, I grabbed my phone and booked a ticket. Original exit date, 3 months away. New plan, tomorrow at dawn. Thinking back, I gave a dry chuckle, scalp prickling. Well, haha, actually, we're not exactly strangers. Sebastian's eyes lit up. He thrust his phone at me. I knew it. Why else would I have so many photos of you? I looked down and froze. I'd braced for something X-rated, but what I saw was cozy, candid shots. Me asleep against the passenger window, head tilted. Me in front of the mirror putting up my hair before going out. Me chin in hand, profile to the window. Plus every selfie I'd posted on Instagram. I lifted my head, stunned. When did he take these? When did he secretly save them? And why? Still, none of it would derail my getaway. I cleared my throat and put on a stern face, but I told you on the phone I have a husband. Sebastian pocketed the phone and smiled. I checked. You don't. Your so-called husband is that singing dancing idol you stan, right? Me. News travels fast with you. He nodded solemnly. Thank you for the compliment. Buddy, that wasn't a compliment. Just then a hurrying passenger bumped my shoulder. I lurched backward. Sebastian snatched me into his arms before I hit the floor. My cheek landed against his chest, every thud echoing in my ear. Thump. Thump. One beat after another. His low voice drifted down. Ivy, come home with me. Startled, I looked up into amber eyes. In them was a tenderness I'd never seen, not even in our most intimate hours, not even when desire had stripped him bare. Could amnesia really change a person this much? But I couldn't soften. I dug my nails into my palm to remind myself. If I sank back in, the price would be more than I could pay. I'll age, novelty will fade, and sooner or later he'll grow tired. Better to walk away while I still can. 3 years as his kept woman, I'd obeyed every rule. Refined on the surface, wild beneath, this man has more tricks than a magician. And yes, sometimes I enjoyed them. But I'm done waiting on him. I've schemed too long to get out. I looked away, ignoring the scorching heat in his gaze. Then I started weaving a tall tale with a perfectly straight face. Sebastian, you're right. I wasn't honest before. But that was to protect your pride and dignity. The truth is, Ivy, that is, me, I'm your deity. I'm your goddess. Sebastian's eyes snapped wide. Goddess? His whole face was stunned. And no wonder. Sebastian, famous entrepreneur. Shoulders like a linebacker, waist that tapers, legs for miles. Face that could front a boy band, money he'll never finish spending. As for the other thing, also impressive. A man like that claiming to have a goddess? Pretty unbelievable. But the words were already out, I could only double down. Otherwise, I pointed at his phone. Look at your camera roll. In most of those shots I'm not looking at the lens. That means you were snapping them on the sly, terrified I'd notice. The rest you swiped from my Instagram. Your intentions are so embarrassing I can't even say them aloud. Sebastian stood rooted. His expression said his entire universe was rebuilding itself. While he blanked out, I yanked my suitcase back, patted his shoulder sagely. A goddess, by definition, is unattainable, but even looking is invigorating, right? In short, quit deluding yourself. I'm the woman you can't have. You knew that before your concussion, and you know it now. I wheeled my luggage and marched toward security. Run while you can. Once that nonsense dawned on him, I'd be doomed. The thing he hates most in life is being lied to. I'd lasted 3 whole years only because I played obedient to perfection. Still, amnesiac Sebastian was surprisingly easy to dupe. I didn't get far. The flight was delayed. I dozed off in the departure lounge. Couldn't help it, last night's adrenaline had kept me up till dawn. When I woke, the plane was gone. Mortifying. I rubbed my eyes and was about to recheck my ticket when my phone rang. It was my college roommate, the one I still chatted with. She was getting married and wanted me as bridesmaid. Back in school we'd been tight, each promising the other the maid of honor spot. I couldn't bring myself to refuse. I just hadn't expected the city she was marrying in to be exactly where I was now. Surely Sebastian wouldn't regain his memory this fast. Besides, he must think I'd already flown out. I kept reassuring myself, yet my stomach fluttered. 3 days later, I duly stood up for my friend at the wedding. Noon ceremony over, she invited bridesmaids and groomsmen to celebrate at a private club, karaoke, and drinks. I was finally free. I felt giddy and agreed to belt out a song or two. In the VIP lounge I partied hard, knocked back several cocktails. A pleasant tipsy buzz set in. Probably one too many. Midway I slipped to the restroom. Coming out, I realized I'd forgotten our room number. While waiting for my friend's reply, I drifted down the hallway. Unwittingly I ended up in the lobby. Afternoon though it was, the place thronged with beautiful people. I was wandering, idly people watching, when a familiar face snagged my peripheral vision. It was Sebastian's best friend, Derek. He spotted me, lifted his crystal flute in salute, rose, and sauntered over, half smirking. Crap. World's tiny. Rich guys hang out at regular clubs too? I forced an awkward smile, spun on my heel and crashed straight into a rock-hard chest. I looked up into deep, dark eyes. Sebastian. My pupils shrank, I dropped my gaze in panic. From behind came Derek's teasing drawl. "Oh, Sebastian, look, it's your..." He let the pause hang, voice thick with amusement that sent ice down my spine. Sebastian nodded and blurted, "Yes. She's my goddess." The guy behind choked on his drink. "What? Did you just say?" Derek stepped closer, eyeing me up and down. I sneaked a guilty glance at my toes. I was out of moves. Sebastian shifted to block me, glaring at Derek. Eyes off. "Who said you could stare at my goddess?" I froze, lips twitching, toes already excavating a 3-bed 2-bath apartment inside my pumps. "Seriously, dude. How do you announce that in public?" And Sebastian's volume ensured half the lobby heard. Every head swiveled toward us. At that moment I prayed for invisibility or a sudden sinkhole. I edged toward the exit, inch by inch. Derek narrowed his eyes, smile wicked. "This? Sebastian's goddess? Hold on a sec." My heart sank, game over. Before I could answer, Sebastian strode between us, voice cold, "What do you want?" "Stop harassing her." Derek's grin froze, shock twisted his face, corners of his mouth twitching spectacular. While they faced off, I seized the chance, spun, and bolted for the door. Better a live coward, I didn't even return to the lounge out of the club, into the first cab, the grand, quick, en route. I texted my friend, "Emergency, gotta go." At the hotel I scooped up my suitcase and beelined to Avalon. This time I would run for it. At the terminal entrance, a silhouette waited. Sebastian. He stood there, gaze stormy. "Ivy," he said quietly, pressure threading the words. "You lied to me again." I opened my mouth, he didn't wait, just swept me up in one arm, dumped me into the back seat of a black sedan. The door slammed shut. Curled on the leather, I stammered, "I'm sorry, I'll never do it again." Of course I didn't mean it. I wouldn't, but Ivy would. I perched on the seat, fidgeting like a live wire. Every time I started to speak, his razor-sharp stare sliced the words off my tongue. Finally I shut up and stared out the window. Mind whirling. I didn't get it. Even if he now knew the real score between us, even if he'd caught me twice trying to flee, this level of this expression. We were nothing but an arrangement. No feelings attached. I met Sebastian 4 years ago studying abroad. He was a year ahead. Then I was still the pampered princess, chin tilted high. He was even prouder, nose practically scraping the stratosphere. I couldn't stand him. Until the bankruptcy hit, Dad framed and jailed. I dropped out and flew home. Unwilling to let the villains win, I decided to seduce the Vance heir and clear my family's name. I planned to use my looks as bait. Finally tracked his favorite private club only to learn the legendary Vance Crown Prince was Sebastian. That's when it clicked. Where that old arrogance came from. By then he'd shed every trace of student scruff, tailored suit, gaze steady and cutting. That night someone drugged his drink. We ended up in bed, muddled and messy. Biting back the pain, I snapped photos, ready to blackmail. When he woke, he glanced at my phone and said calmly, "Stay with me, 30 grand a month." I clenched my teeth. Crush the men who ruined my father. He agreed. Later I watched his methods, swift, ruthless, no survivors. They paid dearly. And from that moment on I understood, this arrangement was never equal. I'd taken his money, I'd better behave. Thinking about it sours me more. If Sebastian refuses to let me leave, I can't. The power to end this has never been mine. I leaned back in the seat, weak, and let out a sigh. I'd been naive after all. I stared at the streets racing backward outside the window, and another thought suddenly surfaced. Plan A had crashed, so I'd simply execute the original plan. Back when Sebastian still had his memory, I'd intended to make myself unbearable to him as fast as possible. And the thing he hated most was a drama queen tantrum-throwing woman. My eyes lit up at the idea. I cleared my throat, scooted closer to Sebastian, looped my arm through his, and purposely crooned in a syrupy voice, "Sebastian, Barbie Tilda." His whole body visibly stiffened. I kept the cloying tone going, "I just want a little trip to clear my head. Why are you being so mean to me?" The man beside me shuddered again. He gave a cold laugh. "A trip? You packed pretty thoroughly. Not worried about the weight?" I gave an awkward giggle and hurried to patch things up. "Oh, Sebastian, babe, I thought you didn't want me anymore." He snorted, half laughing. "Really? Because I kind of feel like you're the one who doesn't want me." I was struck speechless. No way. Why was every word out of his mouth so aggressive? Sebastian told the driver to head to the clifftop mansion he'd given me. I walked into the familiar house, resigned. My mind spinning on how to make him sick of me fast. I never expected that the moment he shut the door, the first thing he said would blank my brain. He said, "Ivy, are you cheating on me?" I thought I'd misheard. "Come again." Sebastian stepped closer, eyes sharp. I instinctively backed up, heels hitting the sofa edge. I toppled onto the cushions. His face flashed panic. He shot out a hand to cradle the back of my head. My head landed on the sofa ridge, but cushioned by his arm, no pain at all. Only the position was beyond awkward. We were too close. Close enough to hear each other breathe. Sebastian's face flushed scarlet. He grabbed a throw pillow, slipped it under my head, yanked his arm free, and sat down on the sofa, turning away. I caught the perfect view of his burning ear and the faint blush crawling down his neck. His innocence startled me. Post-concussion Sebastian was so green. He repeated the question, voice lower. "Ivy, are you cheating on me?" This time I heard every syllable. For some reason it struck me as funny. I sat up, deliberately leaned to his ear, and blew lightly. "Why would you think that?" His ear went from pink to cooked lobster red. He inched away and shoved his phone at me. On the screen, years of Venmo transfers. I checked. "I've been sending you money all this time," he said with certainty. "The only reason I'd do that is if I loved you, if we were dating." My heart iced over. Crap, I'd forgotten about the paper trail. He wasn't planning to claw it back, was he? Damn, miscalculation. No way. He was not getting that money back. Mouth, start lying, now. I gave a hollow laugh. "Well, people don't only spoil their girlfriends, haha. Since," he cut me off, "impossible. Since I was a kid I was taught a man's money goes only to his future wife. The fact I kept sending it means, in my head, you were already her." I sprang off the sofa. Sebastian, people change. And guys sometimes let their pants do the thinking. Sebastian looked dead serious. "Not me. I've always been distant with women, only the one I choose won't disgust me." He paused, ears redder, voice clear. "I tested it. When you come close, I don't feel repulsed, I'm secretly thrilled." Secretly thrilled? I was stunned. "But you just pulled away." He met my gaze, cheeks crimson, and explained earnestly because I blushed and didn't want you to notice. My head spun harder. When I stayed silent, Sebastian tugged me into his arms, muffled. Ivy, the only reason you keep trying to leave is, you cheated and you're done with me. I sighed. I didn't cheat. At once his tone brightened. Good. I knew you love me, we're perfect together. I pressed my temples. After a long internal wrestle, I settled on the truth. Lying was wrong, and that earlier goddess nonsense had been overkill. I wriggled free, looked him in the eye, and said, Sebastian, I'm actually not your girlfriend. His eyes went wide. I don't even have an official title. No wonder you never post me on Instagram. Sorry, I deluded myself. I thought you must love me too. As he spoke, his rims actually turned moist, the picture of heartbreak. Right then my ringtone blared. I have no name, I won't complain, hate is hard to sustain. I glanced, it was spam, swiped it away. When I looked up, Sebastian's lashes were trembling with unshed tears. After a few silent beats I inhaled, ready to unload the whole story. Half an hour later. Sebastian listened, brows locked, saying nothing. I had no clue what was churning in his head. From baby to goddess to kept woman, the spectrum was kind of a lot. When he stayed mute, my nerves frayed and I babbled, ha ha ha, honestly I'm just a useless bitch who survives as a kept woman. Earlier stuff was all BS. Impossible. Sebastian cut in again. I blinked. Huh. He stared, deadly serious. I'm not someone who keeps a sugar arrangement. Why so sure? I was raised strict. My parents drilled, a man without self-respect is rotten lettuce. I'd never fool around. So I must have been seriously dating you. But I tried, we really aren't boyfriend and girlfriend. Not possible. He shook his head. Ever since I was little, my dream was to find the woman I can spend my whole life with, plain, happy, perfect days side by side. I was dazed. Yeah. He painted it lovingly, eyes shining. I picture an ordinary life, us together forever, $1 billion or $2 billion in the bank, a garden clifftop mansion, a garage full of cars, 1 cat, 1 dog, kids, if they happen. Then he nodded to himself. Yep, that's the ordinary life I've always dreamed of. I gaped. My brain only caught $1 billion and ordinary life. I didn't even know which absurdity to tackle first. Sebastian forged on, wounded. So Ivy, are you sick of me and using this kept woman story to bail? Here we go again. Confronted with a question I couldn't answer, I clammed up. My phone rang a second time. Silence doesn't mean I'm wrong. Breaking up isn't the only outcome. I killed it and flicked on Do Not Disturb. Damn, should have never set random ringtones. At last I spoke softly. Sebastian, if you don't believe me, call your best friend, the one named Derek. Sebastian opened his phone to the call screen, then glanced up. You're close to him? I answered honestly, not at all. Sebastian nodded, satisfied. Then how could he possibly know you? He muttered under his breath, what if he lies to make me doubt you just so he can steal you? I twitched my lips, gaping at him like he was an idiot. Memory loss. Does it nerf IQ too? Extreme speechlessness equals laughter. But his face was so earnest I swallowed the laugh. I drew a long breath and said patiently, I mean, he knows what we really are. Since you're convinced I'm your girlfriend, ask him and hear what he says. Sebastian still made the call. I watched his back against the floor-to-ceiling window and felt a headache coming on. Post-amnesia Sebastian was like a completely different person, childish and armed with a ridiculous private logic. I couldn't help it. I opened Baidu and searched, can personality change drastically after memory loss? The results were all over the place. Some said post-traumatic personality reconstruction, others claimed the subconscious releases the true self. The more I read, the more it felt like literary nonsense. Sebastian stayed on that call for a long time. I was dying of curiosity and finally sneaked to the doorway, holding my breath to eavesdrop. Just in time to hear his stunned reply, intended fiancé? I have an intended fiancé? My heart sank. So, the rumors had been true. I'd actually heard the whispers long ago that the Vance family had arranged a society match for him. I just never believed them. To me, someone as proud as Sebastian would never submit to a family-arranged match. But clearly, I'd been wrong. When he hung up, he walked calmly to my side. Hungry? He looked down at me gently. What do you feel like eating? I stared up, bewildered. You just finished that call. So, does that stop me from cooking for you? I paused, then added quietly, guess not. I rubbed my growling stomach and couldn't help naming a dish, plum-glazed ribs. Fair to say, Sebastian cooks like a chef. He's spoiled my palate rotten. After a few days without it, I'd started craving it. I gazed at his back moving around the kitchen and spaced out. Objectively, Sebastian is a man hard not to fall for, striking looks, top-tier ability. 3 years together, and I'd felt flickers more than once. The thought sent a dull ache through my chest. But Sebastian has an intended fiancée. I, Ivy, love money, but I'm not low enough to become the other woman. As for Sebastian, he'd never keep me around, shadowy and undefined, if he had a wife. Since he's about to be engaged, my freedom can't be far behind. With that, the tightness in my chest loosened a little. The next evening, Sebastian took me to a charity gala. Honestly, I hadn't wanted to go until he Venmo transferred 300 grand. A wise woman knows when to yield. I slipped into the black mermaid gown he'd chosen, slid my arm through his, and stepped into the ballroom. Within minutes business partners surrounded him. I was happy for the breather and drifted to the back garden alone. I just never expected to run into my high school nemesis, Lindsay. Our bad blood started in 9th grade. When my family went bankrupt, she'd posted a mini essay in the class group chat the same day, sarcastically celebrating that the princess finally found her cure. Word was she'd just come back from abroad this year. The instant she spotted me, her lips curved in triumph. Crystal flute in hand, chin lifted, she drawled, well, fancy seeing you here. Could it be? She stretched the pause, you've snuck in as some old man's mistress? Ivy, all these years and you're still this shallow. I gave her a cool once-over. In the past I might have swallowed it to avoid trouble. But now, I'm about to run for it, why tolerate anything? I lifted my hand and slapped her clean across the face. Watch your mouth. Lindsay clutched her cheek, shaking with rage. Ivy, your family's bankrupt, what makes you still so arrogant? She swung back, I sidestepped. Just then a woman in a white gown glided over, voice gentle yet commanding, ladies, please. Tonight is the Fontaine family gala, give me this courtesy and let it drop. The moment Lindsay saw her, her anger folded into a pout. Claire, fine, for your sake. She shot me a glare that promised later. I couldn't care less. For her to get back at me, she'd have to find me first. Claire studied me, curiosity flickering. May I ask which family you're from? Your face is new to me. Lindsay cut in with a snicker. Claire, you've just returned, you wouldn't know. Her clan crashed years ago, hardly a miss anymore. Probably tagged along with some sugar benefactor. My fingers curled, fury clogging my throat. But staring at Claire's mild face, I couldn't spew the curses. Because I know exactly who she is. Yunjing. Claire. Heiress of the Fontaines. The gap between us now is sky and earth. The pressure in my chest built. Before I could speak, a warm hand settled on my shoulder. I tilted my head and met Sebastian's deep gaze. He smiled faintly. I told you to wait for me. My throat dried, no sound came out. His intended fiancée stood only steps away. What did we look like? Seemed oblivious, he ruffled my hair like I was a kid. Hungry? The mini cakes are good, let's try some. Then, to Claire, coolly polite Fontaine, send my regards to your grandmother. I'll take my date for a bite, excuse us. Lindsay's face went livid. Vance, your date just slapped me. Sebastian spared her a glance. Then I suggest you control your mouth and avoid words she dislikes. He tucked me against his side and walked off. My heart hammered the whole way. At the dessert station I finally blurted, you aren't going to ask why I hit her? He lifted a petite cake to my lips, voice calm and sure, not necessary. You have your reasons, my only job is to have your back. I froze, tasting nothing under the chandelier's glow. The light carved his profile, sharp outline, lowered lashes. Ridiculously handsome. I kept ordering myself to stay sober, yet my eyes followed him everywhere. After 3 years and every intimacy imaginable, it was an ordinary moment like this that made my heart lurch. Flustered, I chugged a gulp of champagne. The ballroom lights dimmed, a spotlight pooled center stage. Claire glided up, smiled, and began her speech. This is the woman who fits beside Sebastian. A sour burn rose in my throat, swallowing didn't help. After the gala we slid into the back seat of the Maybach. An indefinable melancholy settled over me. Suddenly a car behind rammed us hard. Impact, without thinking, Sebastian crushed me against his chest. Warm breath brushed my ear. "Ivy, don't be scared." The next second his head smashed into the window frame. Blood trickled from his temple. I wasn't hurt. Sebastian was rushed to St. Teresa's. I stood outside the private suite door, peeping at the crowd around him, his parents, relatives, and Claire. Now I was the one without an official title. What identity could I use to walk in? What right had I to stand among them? As I hesitated, his mother's voice drifted out. "Doctor says mild concussion, just 2 days observation." This knock actually brought his memory back, a blessing in disguise. My feet rooted. My heart slammed, heavy and sore. So his memory had returned. Good. Really good. I lowered my head, inhaled softly, turned, and walked away. By the time the town car nosed into the circular drive of the clifftop mansion, the Atlantic fog had swallowed the last band of sunset. The house was hollowed out quiet, so still I could hear my own breathing echo off the marble. Sebastian probably doesn't need me anymore. I stood in the foyer, thumbing my phone like a talisman, and after 3 false starts, dialed his number. It rang and rang, then yawed into voicemail. A small, sharp pain pulsed under my ribs. So, he really doesn't. Of course, now that the memories are back, every drama queen tantrum I ever threw must look pathetically ridiculous to him. But isn't this my perfect window to run for it? I dragged the Rimowa from the closet, stuffed 3 years of stashed cash and the $400 gold foil masks into the belly of the suitcase, and called a lift to Avalon. Halfway down the coast highway the driver clicked on the news. Sebastian, heir to the Vance tech empire, walked away from last night's car crash with only a mild concussion. Sources close to the family add that, once he's fully recovered, Vance will announce his engagement to longtime intended fiancée Claire. I turned my cheek to the window so the driver wouldn't see the stupid sting in my eyes. At departures I hesitated between check-in kiosks, scanning faces like an idiot. Crowds surged, TSA belts whirred, nobody familiar. I tugged the brim of my cap lower and laughed at myself. What was I expecting? A cinematic sprint through security. This time the gate accepted my boarding pass without drama. 3 hours later Seabrook's salty air, warm, lazy, gloriously anonymous, wrapped around me like a quilt. I rented a tiny studio over a bait shop and started hunting for the perfect boutique storefront to retire in. 1 month slipped by. I still hadn't signed a lease. Truth. I missed Sebastian's sweet and sour ribs. Pathetic. He and Claire were probably tasting wedding cake by now. The thought throbbed, but then I'd open my banking app, see the tidy 7 figures I'd salted away, and the hurt dulled to a manageable ache. That afternoon I wandered the wharf, scrolling Zillow commercial. A tall guy in mirrored aviators leaned against a piling, profile half-lit by the lowering sun, same angular cut to the jaw, same careless dark hair. I rubbed my eyes, hallucination? I took 2 curious steps. He pivoted, zeroed in, and strode straight for me. When the sunglasses came off my heart slammed against my ribs. I spun to bolt, but his fingers locked around my wrist. "Ivy," Sebastian's voice was low, storm cloud dark, "you've made me search every damn harbor from here to Avalon." I offered a brittle smile. "Aren't you supposed to be getting married?" He arched a brow. Hard to marry anyone when the bride's already vanished. My mouth outran my brain. "Then maybe you should go chase her." He held my gaze, slow and deliberate. "That's exactly what I'm doing." "Huh." He huffed a rueful laugh. "Looks like we've got a serious misunderstanding to untangle." He closed the gap until his boat shoes nudged mine. "How about we sit down and talk, really talk?" I herded him to the raw bar patio because it was public and bright and my knees were liquefying. The waitress deposited water glasses and fled. I wrapped both palms around mine for ballast. You are fully healed? Sebastian's mouth tilted, half amusement, half accusation. So you do remember I was in a car crash? I wondered. I called, I muttered. You didn't pick up. Phone shattered on impact. By the time the new one synced, little runaway here had already fled the state. Right. Forgot that detail. He leaned forward, elbows on the salt-sticky table. Third time, Ivy, why run? I drew a breath that wobbled only slightly. Freedom. I'm done waiting on anyone. And you already have a fiancé. He blinked, genuinely bewildered. When did I ever ask you to wait on me? I cooked, I Venmo'd you petty cash, I even laundered your silk blouses. And my fiancé, according to my memory, my mother, and my Instagram is you. My turn to gape. He exhaled through his nose. The second the neurologist cleared me, I pulled every travel record to find you. While I was at it, I replayed these last 3 years frame by frame. You kept saying you were my kept woman. That never sat right, because my timeline says we were legitimately, exclusively dating. I spent money on you because, hell, boyfriends do that. I told my mom before the accident, I've found the person I'm going to marry. I've never hidden you from anyone. A sheepish smile tugged the corner of his mouth. The only secrecy came from you. I kept asking you to post us on Instagram, you kept stalling. Looking back, were you already planning your great escape? I scratched a knot in the wood. Didn't want things to get awkward later. A busboy appeared with a galvanized bucket of sunflowers. Sebastian stood, rounded the table, lowered himself onto one sun-bleached knee, and produced a velvet box the color of midnight ocean. Ivy, maddening, mistrustful, magnificent, will you marry me? I studied the fierce softness in his eyes, then the ring, an oval diamond flanked by 2 teal sapphires that matched Avalon on a summer noon. I let the silence stretch just long enough to savor the taste of power. I teased, I might need time to deliberate. Sebastian closed the box with a decisive snap. Take all the time you need. You're worth every second. Sebastian's epilogue. Ivy has always been my goddess. The first photo I saw after the concussion, her laughing on the bow of my boat, made my heart ricochet off my ribcage. When she later claimed she already had a husband, I actually lay awake wondering if I'd morphed into the kind of man who poaches. Didn't feel like me, but, then again, I couldn't remember me. Restless in the private suite, I had my assistant drive me to the family clifftop mansion. In the study I found an unmailed envelope, my own handwriting, 4 years old, a love letter to Ivy. So when she referred to herself as my goddess, I just thought, yeah, accurate. Once the memories fully stitched themselves together, the picture clarified. I met her at Stanford. She was a junior when I was finishing my master's. Sunlit hair, reckless grin, eyes that curved like commas whenever she laughed at her own joke. I was gone in a heartbeat. Terrifying, that level of feeling. I rehearsed every casual hello in my head like I was presenting a doctoral thesis. The night before I planned to confess, I overheard her telling a friend, Sebastian? Too cold, too arrogant, exactly my type on paper, but in real life, hard pass. The letter never left my folder. I flew home the next week, family obligations nipping my heels, and spent years kicking myself for cowardice. Fate, generous and weird, dropped her back into my orbit when her family's empire imploded. I offered help, she accepted. I lavished on her every comfort her former life had promised: cars, clothes, limitless black card, terrified she'd vanish again. Work became my narcotic. I built enough runway to guarantee she'd never want for anything, ever. Apparently I built it so wide she mistook the tarmac for a cage. Lesson learned. From here on out, spreadsheets can wait. She wants tides, I'll charter a catamaran. She wants slopes, I'll buy out the lodge. Almost forgot the best part, she said yes. When the ring clicked over her knuckle, every jealous ghost of a competitor dissolved. Gotta run, wife wants plum-glazed ribs tonight, and I've perfected the sauce. Life, suddenly, is one long anticipated Sunday. Thanks for listening. If you had to rate our story from 1 to 10, what would it be? Smash the like, share with friends, and spam the comments with your verdict. Subscribe for more messy, magnificent love. Catch you next episode.